Hey there! Welcome to our channel where we share heartwarming and educational stories from all over the world. Today's story comes from America, so make sure to stick around until the end to hear an important lesson about the kindness that can change lives. So let's get started. In the heart of America's rural landscape, in a town called Sullivan, Indiana, nestled among rolling hills and fields that stretched as far as the eye could see, life moved at the pace of the seasons. Mabel Carter opened the creaky shutters of her pumpkin stand, ready to face another day in the life of a small-town pumpkin farmer. As the morning mist cleared and the first rays of sunlight touched the pumpkin, Mabel Carter watched as the cars passed by, each one a potential opportunity to share a piece of the warmth she poured into each seed she planted. Meanwhile, his younger sister, Lily, struggled to choose between two particularly plump specimens. There was a depth to their eyes, a weariness in their steps, that spoke of struggles she knew all too well. As she watched them drive away, a wave of determination washed over her. They had heard about Mabel's story and wanted to help. She listened to their stories, offering words of comfort and encouragement whenever she could. Families stopped by after their children in costumes posing for photos beside the glowing pumpkins, their laughter echoing under the harvest moon. Among the visitors were Max and Lily, their faces painted with Halloween cheer. They had returned to Mabel's stand, not just for pumpkins or candy, but to show her the costumes they had chosen with the pumpkins they had received from her. For Lily, who had insisted on dressing as a pumpkin, this was a particularly proud moment. For many, simply having someone to listen without judgment was a relief. The stand, now bare except for a few stray leaves, seemed to echo their absence. It was then that Sophie approached Mabel, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "Mabel," she began, her voice trembling slightly, "Max and Lily haven't stopped talking about you and the pumpkins. They've asked me countless times when we could go back and see you." Mabel, touched by Sophie's words, felt a warmth spread through her chest. She had inadvertently created a bond with these children that went beyond the simple transaction of buying pumpkins. She had become a part of their lives, and she realized that the connection she had forged with Joe through the stand was now reaching out to touch the next generation. Mabel realized that her pumpkin stand had evolved into something more than just a place to buy pumpkins. She looked out at the bare field that would soon be transformed into a sea of green, then burst forth with vibrant orange. Come spring, she would plant the seeds for her next season's pumpkin, nurturing them with the same care and love she had shown before. The memory of Joe, the laughter of children, and the knowledge that she was bringing a piece of sunshine into people's lives kept her spirits high, reminding her that even in the harshest winters, the promise of spring always lay dormant. It had become a sanctuary of hope in a time of uncertainty. Under the guidance of their teachers, they offered their strong arms and youthful energy to help harvest the remaining pumpkins. Together, they carried the pumpkins from the patch with muddy boots and loud laughter, turning what could have been a somber task into a celebration of community and shared purpose. As they worked, they shared stories and jokes, creating bonds that transcended their age gap and reminding Mabel of the importance of community and shared purpose. She may be just one woman running a small pumpkin stand, but if she could bring a small measure of joy to these children, then she was doing something worthwhile. Mabel, observing their delight, couldn't help but feel a tug at her heartstrings. Families who had struggled through months of financial hardship, rising food prices, and the haunting uncertainty of the future found solace in Mabel's offering. For some, it was the chance to carve a pumpkin with their children without worrying about the cost. For others, it was the opportunity to trade homemade goods for a fresh pumpkin, a tangible way to contribute in a time when money was tight. Children began bringing hand-drawn pictures to Mabel, taping them to the wooden walls of the stand, turning it into a patchwork quilt of hope and color. As the autumn leaves fell around them, she knew firsthand the joy that a simple pumpkin could bring, and seeing it reflected in the children's eyes brought back a flood of memories. Finally, Max emerged from behind a pumpkin, his face beaming with pride as he held up his selection. "This one," he exclaimed, "it's perfect." His sister, Lily, nodded vigorously, her eyes shining with admiration. As Sophie prepared to pay for the pumpkins, Mabel surprised her by saying, "There's no need for money, dear. Just take them. They're on the house." Sophie, taken aback by the generosity, hesitated for a moment. However, sensing the sincerity in Mabel's eyes, she accepted the gift with gratitude. Hours passed, and the only sound that accompanied Mabel was the buzzing of crickets, the chirping of birds, and the distant rumble of a tractor in the neighboring field. The solitude began to weigh heavily on her heart, making the silence feel deafening. Just as Mabel began to lose hope that anyone would stop, a rusty pickup truck pulled over. On it, she would arrange rows of bright orange pumpkins, each one a symbol of hope, resilience, and the enduring spirit of the community. Behind her, a boy and a girl, no older than 8 and 5 respectively, peeked out from behind the seats, their eyes wide with curiosity. "Excuse me," the woman called out, her voice wavering slightly. "Are your pumpkins for sale?" Mabel, startled by the sudden intrusion, quickly recovered her composure. With a warm smile, she replied, "Of course, dear, take whichever one you want." The children gasped in delight and rushed to the crates, their eyes scanning the collection. The young boy, Max, carefully examined each pumpkin, searching for the perfect one. Meanwhile, his younger sister, Lily, struggled to choose between 2 particularly plump specimens. Mabel, observing their delight, couldn't help but feel a tug at her heartstrings. She knew firsthand the joy that a simple pumpkin could bring, and seeing it reflected in the children's eyes brought back a flood of memories. 3 years had passed since Joe had passed away, leaving Mabel to navigate the world alone. Grief had settled in her heart like a persistent fog, making each day feel heavy and the future uncertain. Yet through it all, the pumpkin stand had remained, a silent witness to her sorrow and an anchor to her memories. Now, as the leaves began to turn, Mabel found herself preparing the stand once again, her hands moving with a familiarity that brought both comfort and pain. The rhythmic scrape of the hoe against the hard ground, the gentle thud of pumpkins hitting the wooden crates, each movement echoed with the ghost of Joe's laughter, making the solitude almost unbearable. But with a deep breath and a resolute heart, Mabel pushed on, whispering, "We will do this for Joe, for the town, and most importantly, for ourselves." You see, this pumpkin stand wasn't just a random act of whimsy, it was a shared dream that Mabel's late husband, Joe, had cherished. He had believed that with a little effort and a lot of heart, they could turn their love for pumpkins into a way to help their neighbors and friends. And so year after year, they had worked side by side to perfect their craft, selecting the finest seeds, nurturing the vines, and ensuring that each pumpkin was a masterpiece of nature's bounty. As the summer sun gave way to autumn's embrace, the air grew crisp, with the promise of cooler days and the vibrant hues of changing leaves. This was a time of year that held a special place in the hearts of the townspeople. It was pumpkin season, and for Mabel Carter, 67, a widow who lived on the outskirts of town, it was more than just a seasonal delight. It was a legacy. Every October, Mabel would set up a small wooden stand by the side of the narrow country road that ran past her house. But life, as it often does, had dealt them a heavy hand. And so it was that on a particularly foggy October morning, as the crows called across the harvested fields, and the mist rose from the cracked earth, from the passenger seat emerged a woman in her early 30s, her face etched with a mix of determination and worry. The boy, Max, carefully examined each pumpkin, searching for the perfect one. As the family made their way back to the truck, Mabel couldn't shake off the feeling that this encounter was more than just a chance interaction. News of Mabel's honesty spread through Sullivan like wildfire, and soon her pumpkin stand became a hub of activity. One cool afternoon, a group of teenagers from the local high school arrived at the stand, their faces serious but their eyes filled with enthusiasm. With the help of the teenagers, Mabel's workload was significantly reduced, allowing her to spend more time chatting with the families who visited the stand. On Halloween night, Mabel left a row of carved, glowing pumpkins along the stand, a small basket of candy beside them with a note that read, "Take a treat, take a smile." As the night wore on, Mabel watched with a mixture of joy and sadness as the last of the families departed. That winter, As the snow fell softly outside, Mabel sat by the window of her farmhouse, sipping a cup of hot cocoa.